Confirmed that Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir has left the country for Kharthoum. His jet took off from Waterkloof Airforce Base. He had been in the country to attend the African Union Summit in Sandton. The North Gauteng High Court was expected to rule today on an application by the South African Litigation Centre that Bashir be arrested. The case resumed after being adjourned this morning for an hour. The Justice Ministry is arguing against the Litigation Centre's application. In 2010, Bashir was indicted by the International Criminal Court in The Hague on 3 counts of genocide committed against some ethnic groups in Sudan. He is the first sitting president ever to be indicted by the ICC. Earlier today, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said the ICC's warrant for Bashir's arrest must be implemented by countries who have signed up to the ICC's statutes. While contributing editor Vuyo Mvoko is at the Sandton Convention Centre where the AU summit is in session. Vuyo, tell us, how have some of the delegates at the summit reacted to al-Bashir taking off?
Well, at the moment, for most people, it's still a rumor that has been going on since last night, because there hasn't been any official confirmation that he has indeed left South Africa. But we do know, of course, from our reliable sources that he has indeed left. So at the moment, it's still at a speculative level for most people, and they haven't therefore engaged with the reality that he has actually left. Tabile?
Vuyo, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said the ICC's warrant for Bashir's arrest must be implemented by countries who have signed up to the ICC statutes. South Africa has signed up. What's our position in this context?
Well, our position remains because even though South Africa and the rest of the continent, the AU, under the umbrella of the AU, does indeed have problems with the ICC, how it works. They have been on the record about how they believe that Western nations and governments are targeting African leaders that they don't like, and they are funding the ICC, but yet they themselves are not signatories. So they do have a whole range of issues about the ICC. But the reality, of course, is that South Africa and a lot of African countries have indeed signed up. And even the issue of President Bashir was referred to the ICC via the UN system. So they really have no grounds, even though they do have issues with the ICC, they have very little grounds to really argue what they are arguing. And by the ANC, the ruling party in South Africa's own admission, but also by the admission of the record of certain government officials, this is a boo-boo, because something ought to have been done. In other words, at the time at which South Africa and other African nations had taken a decision that they no longer have confidence in the ICC system, they should have gotten out, but they didn't. So they are obliged, as the UN Secretary General says, to actually hand over President al-Bashir to the ICC for prosecution, and they haven't done that. In fact, they were not going to do that, even if President Bashir was was still in South Africa. I would bet you my bottom rand or Kruger rand that nothing would happen to him, because it was going to result in a huge fallout. You cannot have the entire continent taking a particular position and the South Africa taking a different position. That would be the end of South Africa in African politics. It's as simple as that. That's not to say that it would have been, or it's correct for South Africa to actually to not hand him over, as they are obliged to in terms of what they signed up for.
Vuyo, now it's been said that the ICC is using this President Bashir situation as a way to pit African leaders against each other. What's your take on that, just briefly?
I mean, they would obviously, I mean, there are a lot of people who would obviously say that. One, because they really didn't take kindly to this Bashir issue suddenly dominating the headlines and being the only issue that they get asked about every time they have to speak about the important issues that they are supposed to and have been discussing at this summit. So they're not taking kindly to that. But two, they are firm in their belief that the ICC system is actually wrong. It's tantamount to a kangaroo court against African leaders. But in my view, they should take responsibility for, I mean, leadership is as much about the things you do as it is about the things that you don't do. So if you do not act on time, if you do not make your position known that I'm extremely unhappy with and I don't approve of how the ICC is functioning, then get out. You cannot stay there having signed up for like very specific things, and then when you are called upon to deliver on the things that you signed up for, then you turn around and have other excuses. So they should, in my view, take responsibility for not having acted. And the excuse you're being given that no one foresaw what we've seen over the past couple of days is not an excuse, because as a leader you should take I mean, you should actually accept any eventuality and prepare for it accordingly. And the fact that they didn't do that, I think they have a case to answer.
We'll have to leave it there. Thank you for the update, Vuyo.